All right, guys, let's talk homeschool favorites. Now, all of us use quite a few high-quality resources to keep our homeschools going, but there are a few that just make our hearts go pitter-patter. Or if you don't get quite that emotional about homeschool curriculum and school supplies, well, then these are the resources that you keep coming back to day after day and year after year. These are your go-to standbys. I'm going to share some of mine, and I want you to share yours in the comments. What are the curriculums that make you want to write "I heart this curriculum" and wear it on a t-shirt? I want to know. Let me know, and also any of your favorites among these. Some of these are going to be things that you can buy, and some of these things are going to be things that no amount of money can buy. So keep watching. Also, if you've been watching my channel for a while, probably a number of these things are going to seem somewhat familiar to you because I'm a fairly consistent person. However, if you're new to this channel, welcome, and you should definitely stick around because I make nerdy homeschool videos like this every week. So first, I'm going to begin with this is actually what inspired this whole video because I feel like I have not talked about it enough, and I just really appreciate this. This is Spelling UC Level A specifically. I have a video I can link to down below, which is all about the Spelling UC series and curriculum, but Level A really has my heart. And this is because it does something that a lot of early spelling curriculums don't do. They just give your child a page that looks like this, with just boxes on it, 3 boxes for all these words, and you just tell your child words from the answer key, from the teacher key. You tell your child words, and then they just spell them. These are not words that you've had your child practice or play games with or do anything with. These are not words that your child has memorized or copied or anything. They just hear the word man, and then they are expected to write it. And then they hear can, and they're expected to write can. And then they're expected to write Dan, the name Dan, and you remind them, Dan starts with a capital letter because it's a name. And to me, this is so brilliant because it's planting the seed of an idea in a child that, hey, I know letters, I know how to read, I can take what I know about letters and I can turn it into the skill of spelling. I can hear a word and I can think about, how is this word spelled? What words am I hearing? What sounds am I hearing? I can put those sounds in order and I can spell. I don't have to feel like I can only spell words that I've already studied and learned. So to me, this is a really powerful tool. I love this as a very awesome introduction to spelling that's like, hey, you can spell words. And it gets up to 5-letter words at the end. It gets blends in there. It gets SH and TH and all sorts of cool combos. Yeah, here's our 5-letter words there at the end. To me, this is awesome. I think more people should consider using this in their homeschools. Now let's move on. Number 2 favorite resource is one I'm a little bit scared to admit to because they might take away my homeschool card for doing this, but you guys can keep my secret, right? Right? Here it is. It is tests. Just the general concept of tests. These could be tests that come with your curriculum, or these could be tests that you just DIY and make up and just invent for your children. Now, I know a lot of homeschoolers really don't like using tests, and you'll hear a lot of people saying there's no need for tests in homeschool. I take a different approach. I actually think that tests can be an incredibly valuable learning tool, both for homeschool teachers and for homeschool students. And this is because some children really benefit from taking a test, from having the opportunity to have their knowledge tested, because some kids can be very confident in what they know. You can be asking them, teaching them all this. They can be, yes, I know it, mommy. Then they have the opportunity to be tested. And when the test is in front of them, they start to realize, oh, well, actually, I don't know that quite as well as I thought I did. I remember there was some guy we learned about, but I don't remember his name. Yeah, you start to get to that point. So testing just can be a really useful tool sometimes to be like, actually you don't know. You were kind of making it seem like you did, but you can't take this information and apply it, or you can't take this information and give it back. And tests can look so different. I'm probably going to need to do a whole dedicated video on tests at some point. They can be oral tests. Oral tests can be really great if you are teaching a language. Because kids can be like, oh, I know all these words, Mama. I don't need to spend time working on these words. And you can be like, okay, let's do an oral translation test right now. Let's just practice it. Tests can also be great with reading. Some kids actually find tests to be very motivational. So sometimes I'll just declare, hey, we're gonna use this page as a reading test, and we're gonna keep track of how many mistakes you make. And then we're gonna think, was that a lot of mistakes? Was it a few mistakes? Was there no mistakes? Let's look at this. Now let's try rereading it. Can we read it with fewer mistakes? So I do encourage you to use testing. They are one of my favorite tools as an educator, and testing does not need to be a stressful experience. I know that many parents are coming into homeschooling with already a background of stress and anxiety with tests, and I just want to say as a lifelong homeschooler that's not a necessary requirement of testing. It doesn't need to be stressful or anxious. We can come into it with our parents and our kids to see tests as a learning tool that helps us get to where we want to be. And my number 3 favorite, Crayola. I don't think Crayola ever sponsors homeschoolers for anything, but they probably should, because we spend a good chunk of our school supply money on Crayola supplies. These have been my favorite markers for small hands, the Pipsqueak skinny markers. A lot of people go for thick markers, but these have honestly been really great and they have lasted a long time. Granted, I do supervise marker use and I always make sure the lids are put on afterwards. These are by far my favorite crayons. I will recommend them 100 times over. Ultra clean, washable, large crayons, color mattes. Has to be these ones because they are very vivid and bright colors. They are so satisfying to color with. They're thick for little hands. You can get the thinner ones if you have older kids who don't need the thick crayons that don't break as easily anymore. But these have been awesome. They've lasted us a long time. And then the watercolors. Like, yes, are there better quality watercolors out there? Sure. But with little kids, it's much more about quantity. And these do have very vivid colors. It's about quantity of art creation, not just like, oh, the highest quality and most expensive. To me, Crayola has always offered a really, really good value. My number 4 favorite will be no surprise to you at all if you watch my channel, and it is flashcards. If you know Rachel, you know she uses flashcards for lots and lots of things. And I have some videos I will link down in the description below with some of my favorite flashcard games. But to me, flashcards, they might seem old-fashioned, they might seem boring, but having a small piece of information that your child needs to learn, slapping it on a card, makes it so powerful because you can move it around, you can use it in different ways, you can review that information as necessary. We've used flashcards for letters, we've used them for numbers, we've used them for words. These flashcards I'm showing off right here because I'm so proud of them. These are our state and capital flashcards that I sell on my website. I had my sister paint these gorgeous paintings of the states that have state symbols represented. So you can go through and you can do, what state is this? Recognizing the shape of states. You could do, what's the capital of this state? We can do Olympia, Washington. We can do, Kentucky with a horse. Frankfort, Kentucky. We can do my beloved Michigan. So we can do flashcards, we can move them around, have different ways to use them for foreign language learning. Flashcards are useful. People sometimes don't have enough imagination when it comes to flashcards, but use your imagination. So here, I've got murciélago, it's a bat. But we don't just want to learn the word bat. I mean, it might be useful, but we want to really learn how to speak in Spanish. So we want to make up sentences. That's a lot of what I use flashcards for in foreign language learning. Okay, we'll have our flashcard with one word on it, but let's go a lot further than that. What could you say about murciélagos? Could you say, yo tengo miedo de murciélagos, or yo no tengo miedo de murciélagos, or a million things. You can go further. Tell a whole story about un murciélago that you met last night, and it could talk, or whatever. You can go crazy just based on a simple flashcard. To me, these are cheap, fantastic learning tools. These particular flashcards are part of Llamitas, which I'm going to talk about next. Llamitas Spanish is another favorite curriculum resource for me. They have 3 different levels of curriculum available on their website, which I've done videos on each of the 3 levels. I've owned each of the 3 levels, and I will link to those videos down below, and I'll put my affiliate link to their website as well. On their website, they actually have a great freebies resource center where they always have a seasonal themed unit, different units that come out that are free for a limited time. They have some of their early readers available for free, as well as a whole bunch of flashcards. And you know how I feel about flashcards. But I'll explain really quickly why Llamitas has been so great for our homeschool. This is because it can actually be kind of hard to find Spanish curriculum that fits the needs of our family or our family situation, where our kids have been exposed to quite a bit of Spanish throughout their lives since birth. They've grown up hearing it. However, they're also not native speakers. They're definitely English dominant. They understand quite a bit of Spanish, and I understand quite a bit of Spanish. I can speak a fair amount, but I'm very far from being a totally fluent Spanish speaker. So for me, diving into using Spanish resources that are made for native speakers is a little bit too intimidating. And then on the other side, diving into Spanish resources that are for beginners is a little too easy. It's not teaching the kind of things that my children need to learn and need to improve on. So for me, Llamitas has been an excellent fit, that it does provide the scaffolding that we need as being non-native Spanish speakers, but it also is very, very rich in expanding vocabulary and allowing us to get beyond what we already know. So I've used all of their levels. I'm going to be continuing to use Llamitas. They're a great curriculum, definitely worth checking out if you're working on getting to the next level in Spanish with your kids. The next favorite is just a book that probably everyone has read, but if you haven't read it, you should read it. And it's such a favorite that I own it in 2 languages, and this is Frog and Toad. They are just so good. I love books that can serve multiple purposes, and can fit in different seasons of life, and Frog and Toad is one of those. That it can be an amazing read aloud, amazing picture book, storybook when your children are toddlers and preschoolers, and then when they're actually learning how to read and when they can actually read, it's a great early reader, not when they're just beginning to sound out words, but once they've kind of gotten the hang of it, but they're not ready for real chapter books, it makes a great early reader. And it's just enjoyable to read as an adult. I am so impressed at how much personality these characters have, and how much they can have given the small amount of words contained in these stories, the consistency of their characters. I love the friendship. It's a really nice friendship, a nice complementary friendship between Frog and Toad. These books have my heart. I read them when I was a kid. I've read them to my children. I will read them to my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren if I am so blessed to live that long. Next homeschool favorite, the Humble Notebook. You can get fancier notebooks. A lot of homeschoolers really like the School Nest notebooks available on Amazon with very pretty colors. There's a whole rainbow of colors you can choose from, and they're not that expensive. But also just a plain old Walmart notebook works very well. Notebooks can be so useful in so many subjects. Sometimes just the action of reading about something, learning about something, and then telling your child, okay, now put that information, synthesize that information into a notebook page, can be so useful. It gives you a quick review tool, go back over those notebook pages. It teaches skills of note-taking. It teaches skills of writing, narration, putting information into your own words. It helps you remember what you've learned. Notebooking is awesome and amazing, and we love it, and I think I will always be using it in my homeschool. These are great if you've got little kids and you want them to be drawing pictures, but you can also even draw pictures in this. Don't wait till your child can notebook and write everything themselves to start. That would be my recommendation. Go ahead and start early. Make it a habit. Start building these notebooks of theirs, even when you have to do all the writing, and then gradually they can start taking the reins as they build the fundamental skills necessary for writing in their own notebooks. My next favorite homeschool resource is one that you cannot buy, and that is good old-fashioned imagination and ingenuity. Just being able to, on the spot, without preparation, make up little applications and learning activities. As we're reading, we want to be able to, as teachers, as we're teaching, to just see what ideas are connecting with our kids, see which ideas are not connecting with our kids, use our imagination, use whatever is surrounding us, pick it up, make illustrations, make demonstrations. One of my favorites that happened recently was we're talking about thunder and lightning, and suddenly that turns into, okay, we're gonna run a thunder and lightning race across the room. One person is gonna be thunder and they're gonna run more slowly. The other person is gonna be lightning and they're gonna run much faster because lightning beats thunder. Light waves travel faster than sound waves. Boom. My next homeschool favorite is something that money totally can buy, and that is a planner. Now, I'm curious, if you were into journaling or scrapbooking when you were growing up, how do you feel about planners now? I have really enjoyed being able to use a homeschool planner. I'm not a maximalist planner. I'm not all into the washi tape and stickers and all that. I do have colorful pens. Colorful pens bring so much joy. But I do love using my planner on a daily basis, keeping little records of what we've been doing. Highly recommend it. I like this planner. This is the Homeschool Lesson Planning Minimalist Notebook from School Nest on Amazon. One of the things that draws me to it is it's really reasonably priced. Amazon prices change, but I think when I bought it, it was around $18, which is very reasonable compared to many homeschool specific planners. But whatever planner you get, whatever planner speaks to your heart, get that one, use it. They have been an awesome tool in my homeschool. The next homeschool favorite I want to mention will be very familiar to those of you who are long-term viewers of my channel, but that is Gentle and Classical. I've used the vast majority of what Gentle and Classical has published in my homeschool. They have been a huge part of our homeschool days over the past couple of years. And one thing I appreciate about their resources is that they really make it seem doable and easy and practical to teach very rich material to very young children. They don't make it seem like, oh, you gotta stay on the baby stuff now and only later when they're older you can start teaching this cool and interesting and rich stuff. So I don't think without Gentle and Classical I would have been teaching my 4-year-olds, how to identify the sound of a viola or cello or violin. I don't think we would have been listening to Bach. I don't think we would have been studying Monet's art, learning about Monet, and having kids who can recognize and point out Vincent van Gogh's artwork and Monet's artwork and Vermeer's artwork, in their everyday life. I'm not a musical or artistic person, really, so I have really appreciated that element of having a curriculum that gets me outside of my comfort zone and that says, hey, we can teach this rich curriculum, this rich information, and this vast world, this feast of information to our children. So I do have an affiliate link with them. I will link to that down below and some of my videos if you have any questions. I know that just Gentle and Classical can seem a little bit intimidating to get started with when you just look at their teacher's guides, but I promise you, once you get the hang of it, it's a lot less intimidating than it looks at first. And my very final favorite that I'm going to share with you today is get a big map of the world, or alternately, a globe. I would really like to have a globe. I know my sons would love it. I have not been able to find a good globe yet where I live. When I was growing up, my family had an interactive globe, and some of my core homeschool memories involve me and my siblings surrounding me, all of us focused on this globe, trying to beat the game as we spin it to try to tap on and find the different countries that it's telling us to find. I loved that. I wish I could have something like that for my boys. It was so much fun. We used that and used that and used that for years. I would love a globe like that, but I don't have a globe like that. We have a big wall map. So if you're not going to get a globe, get a wall map. There's so many times, just as you're reading stories, as you're reading about an artist or a composer or anything, you can find and you can place people where in the world they are. So I recommend don't get like just the pretty kind of map, which just has an outline of the world. Get one that's actually more educational, that has the countries labeled, that has bodies of water labeled, capitals, the actual information that makes a globe very useful is better than just the kind that looks pretty. I mean, I think maps look pretty. Anyways, I do like the pretty maps, but for homeschool purposes, go for the one with things that are actually labeled. All right, that was a whole video of me waxing eloquent about all the homeschool resources that I just love. Share with me in the comments some of your all-time favorites. I'll see you next time. Bye.